Hey, it's Erica. Welcome back to my channel. It is time to talk about all of the books that I have read recently, and then I'm going to talk about what I'm reading currently and kind of what I plan to read next. It has been an incredibly productive month. As you can see by the thumbnail, I have a host, a plethora, a basket full of five-star books that I do not know of a time when I have read so many books so close together that I was like, look, I absolutely love this. Some of them are going to be favorites of like the month or my recent reading. Some of them I'm already able to tell these are going to be some of like best of all time. So I had no idea, number one, that I would have so many books, period, to talk about this month. But I had no idea until because I write down a list when I'm gonna do a video like this. I had no idea that so many of them were books that I ranked so highly. So it was a pleasant surprise. I'm happy to be here. Let's talk about some books. I am not going to go into some of these too deeply because a lot of them I have much more in-depth thoughts in a separate video. So if that's the case, I'm going to just give like a brief update on what I thought of them, and then like direct you to the other video, and I'll link those below. I'm going to just count. I think I had 15 books. 15 books that I read recently that I'm going to talk about today. Let me count really quick at my very handy list. Give me just a second. Indeed, I have 15. 15 that we're going to talk about or at least touch on today. I'm going to do like I always do. I'm going to start books that I like the least. We'll end with the outstanding shining star of my recent reading. The book that I love the best will be saved for last. So first we're gonna start, I don't have one to hold up, which is the first I'm gonna start with. So I'm gonna put it up here. This is Daughter of the Siren Queen by Trisha Levenseller. This is the sequel to Daughter of the Pirate King. This one I listened to on audiobook, which is different from how I consumed the first book. The first book I physically read. This one though was available at my library in an audiobook, so I borrowed it. And I enjoyed the first one for what it was. You know, it's a YA fantasy. It's piratey, so I love pirates, and I thought for what it was doing, I thought it did just fine. Then I got to this sequel and I DNF'd it. It just had a very different, I don't know, tone to it. There was more angst. I don't remember the first one being this angsty, and our main character is she's going through some like harrowing, life-threatening experiences, and the whole time in this sequel she's thinking, but does this guy like me? I don't know, but I don't care because I don't like him. But like, what does he feel about me? But like, it doesn't matter. But like, he's so hot, but I shouldn't be thinking about that. I just could not do it. It was too much. And so unfortunately I had to DNF it. I will not be trying again on that one. And I'm not going to be reading the third book. So that was my thoughts. That was my one DNF this month, was that one. And now we're gonna start on some physical books. All right, next one is The Daughters of Izdihar. Who's this by? This is Hadir Elsbai. This is one that I read for one of my Reddit fantasy bingo reading books, and I went into depth on this one in one of my my bingo update videos, so I'm not going to go too into depth on this. We follow two main characters in this book, and one of them I really enjoyed the part of the story that involved them and the chapters that were focused on them. The other character that was the main character in this book that we followed, I could not stand her. Hated it, so which turned out to mean that I hated like half this book. So I did finish it because it was my bingo reading, but I would say it was a 2-star for me. I believe this is a duology. I don't plan to read the second book in this, but again, I will link the video if you want to know more thoughts on like what this book was about and why one of the characters was just not working. The next one is unfortunately another Reddit fantasy bingo read for me. This is The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi. This is a YA fantasy. I believe this is going to be in the same bingo video as The Daughters of Izdihar. So if you want more in-depth thoughts on this one, check out that video. This is a YA fantasy. It's supposed to be heisty, and it kind of is, and I like that about it, but it's set in a very specific time period of Paris, like in our world, but kind of an alternate history. And the author used a lot of modern language in this book, and when I'm reading a historical fantasy and or really any fantasy that's supposed to take place in our world and like a specific time and place in our world, and then the author uses modern language, I find it really jarring. So on it, that was probably my biggest complaint about this one, but that's just a personal preference. So this one, I would say I liked it more than The Daughters of Izdihar, but I don't plan to continue reading this series. If I hadn't been reading it for bingo, I would have DNF'd it. Same with Daughters of Izdihar. If I hadn't been reading it for bingo, I would have dipped out. So again, more thoughts. You want more thoughts on this? Go to the video. That'll be linked down below. Oh, another Reddit fantasy bingo reading book. This is The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner. I believe it's going to be in the same video. Same Reddit bingo fantasy reading video. So go ahead and check that out if you wanted more thoughts on this one. My biggest problem with this one is that it's called the London Seance Society, right? There's an implication with this title that we're going to get a ton of occulty stuff. And frankly, for a book that's called this and that is supposed to take place involving an occult organization called the London Seance Society, there was very little occulty things in here, and it just didn't meet my expectations. I also didn't really care too much about the characters, so it was, I don't know, it was a letdown. I would say maybe it was like a 3-star read. This was, again, though, another one that if I didn't need to read it for the bingo reading, I probably would have DNF'd it, which was a huge disappointment. So I was really looking forward to reading this book. It's like a murder mystery, which I love. It's got occulty stuff that I love. It just didn't work for me in this one, unfortunately. The next book is The House of My Mother by Sherry Frankie, and I'm gonna put it up here. This was an audiobook that I borrowed from my library. It's a memoir. Sherry is, I believe, the oldest daughter of Ruby Frankie. Ruby has recently, within the last year or two, been in the news because she's been convicted of just really horrible child abuse of her children. And so she has, how many children do they have? I think maybe 6. Is it 6 that they have? Anyway, they have many children. Ruby was a pretty terrible mother, and Sherry recounts her experience growing up with that, and trying to navigate her way into adulthood from this experience of, having Ruby, and, the path that they ended up going on, like, into more, fundamentalism. So if you're interested in a memoir about that, I thought that this was a contribution that was worthwhile to listen to. Parts of it are hard to listen to, especially I think if you have a parent or parents who were not great either. I think probably a lot of what Sherry talks about is going to resonate, and so parts of it are going to be difficult to listen to, but for sure worthwhile. And I'm glad that I listened to it because it's read by the author, and I've found that I'm liking to listen to sort of a memoir type of a book with the author reading it. I think that it's more personal that way, and I ended up rating this one, I don't know, probably about a 3.5 star book. And then I had for my bingo reading as well, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This is a sci-fi. I went into this more in one of my bingo reading videos, so I'm gonna link that. This was it was a very comforting book. The entire time I was reading it, it just made me feel really positive. And even though, it's sci-fi stuff, so there's like danger and different things, but it was just a really nice, comfortable, and comforting book to read, watching all the characters. It's like a found family kind of a theme going on in this one, and it was great. I still haven't decided if I'm going to continue with the series or not. I still need to look further into like what's going on with the subsequent books, because if it's more like this, then I will absolutely continue on, because I just had a really great time reading this. I would say this was a solid 4. I enjoyed the whole way through. So if you're looking for sci-fi, this was great. If you want sci-fi that's more focused on relationships rather than so much like high-tech things, this is great too, because I don't read a ton of sci-fi. Like, I'm not opposed to sci-fi, I just don't typically reach for it. This was absolutely what I needed. It felt very palate cleansery, and I just had a really good time. It was a great book. The next one I read, I'm gonna put it up here because it was an ebook. Let me get the exact name because I am reading the sequel right now and I want to make sure I don't mix them up. Okay, this was The Secrets of Winterhouse. This is the second book in the Winterhouse trilogy, and this is a middle grade mystery. It's like a fantasy mystery trilogy, and it's about our main character. I believe, is she 12 or 13? Anyway, she's around that age, and she ends up going to in this place called Winterhouse. It's like a very fancy, world famous resort. It's owned by her grandfather that she's just recently met. In this book, she ends up spending more time at Winterhouse and sort of delving further into the mysteries that she learned about in the first book. I'm not going to give too much away about it because it's going to absolutely spoil the plot of the first book if I do. But basically, our main character ends up spending most of this book just investigating the mysteries at Winterhouse, not to be confused with the third book in this series that is explicitly called The Mysteries of Winterhouse. But basically, all 3 of these books are about the mysteries of Winterhouse, and it's just a fun read, and I think they're written really well. I'm glad to see, I feel like this author is not dumbing down what he's writing about for his audience. Considering his audience is middle grade, it's really nice to see he's presenting them with some quality books to read, you know, a complex plot, complex characters, and it was really nice to see. And once I'm finished with this series, I plan to try to find something else similar, because I'm just really pleasantly impressed with the writing in this. And so yeah, I'm, like I said, currently in the middle of the third one, so I'm finishing the trilogy, clearly. Now, back to the physical books. This was great. Loved this book. John Dies at the End by Jason Parkin. This has been on my radar for many years since it came out. This is another bingo reading book. It is also listed in one of my, I talk about it more in one of my bingo reading videos. So again, it will be in the links down below if you want to get further thoughts. But we follow 2 main characters here who get the ability to see eldritch creatures in our world and kind of take it upon themselves to fight those things. So that's what we follow here. It's eldritch horror, but it's also so funny. I laughed out loud through this entire book. I had such a great time. I could not believe some of the things that I was reading. I've never read anything like this. I am 100% continuing this series, and then I will read the other series that he has, which I think is maybe it was Zoe Ash, something like that. Then I'm gonna have to try to find other books that are similar to this, because this was so enjoyable. If you want horror and you've been missing the humor in horror, or if you don't even realize you've been missing humor in horror. I didn't even realize I needed tons and tons of humor in my horror. I mean, I like humor in books when it's done well, and this was just fantastic. I flew through this book. I'm really looking forward to continuing the series on this. The next two I'm going to talk about together because one of them is the first novel in a series and one of them is a little short story that's kind of like a prequel to the series. I'm going to talk about them together. So I'm going to put up here, this is, let me pull up the names. So the novel is The Path of Flames and the short story is Escape from Bethos. This is by Phil Tucker. So it's going to be the first book and like the prequel short story in the Chronicles of the Black Gate. I have a dedicated video to the first book, The Path of Flames, because I had such a great time. So I will not expound too much on it here, but it's a portal fantasy and it was really well regarded when it came out because it does portal fantasy so well. I think there's 5 books in the series total and then a couple of short stories along the way. I absolutely plan to continue. I'm hoping to start the second book soon-ish, but it was great. I had such a good time reading this and I think I talked about it in its own video for like 45 minutes or something crazy like that. So if you want to know more thoughts, go check it out. But this is an excellently done portal fantasy that's set in, it's a high fantasy world and it's just incredibly well executed and I can't wait to continue that. All right, we've come to it at last. My basket of 5-star books. And so I would say these are in no particular order, except that I realized when I was like stacking them, because I'm like gonna talk about them in an order. Obviously, I can't talk about them all at once. I realized, in fact, there is a favorite. I don't know. The competition was tough. Okay, we had some strong contenders with this reading. And so I don't want any of my 5 stars that are not the last book here to feel bad. They shouldn't feel bad about themselves, okay? Because they're all strong candidates for the top spot. So, having said that, I'm going to talk about these two together because they go together. So, I did a reread of Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which is the first book in the Emily Wilde series. And then I read book 2, which is Map of the Other Lands. Now this one I did as an audiobook. When I read it through the first time, I did read the physical book. And so I'm trying to, like I said, get more into audiobooks. So I figured I would do the reread as an audiobook. I am so glad that I did. The audiobook was excellent. So the voice actors really brought Emily and Bamblebee to life. I thought it was so fun. And the first time I read through this book, I rated it 5 stars because I just had such a good time with the Fae and how they're presented in this book. And just the entire tone of this book really worked for me. I had a blast, and when I listened to it on audiobook, man, did it hold up, and I had a blast again. This is still a 5-star book, and then I moved pretty much immediately after I finished the audiobook, because it's been a couple years since I read the first one, so I wanted to touch back into it before I got into the sequel. So then I went through Map of the Other Lands, and I loved this too. I loved this too. Now, this is, I talked more about this in one of my series reading videos. So again, I'm not gonna dive too deep into this right now, but this was a strong book number 2 in a trilogy. I know there's a lot of times where you read a trilogy and it just acts as a bridge between the first book and the third book. This held up as, you know, its own story within the trilogy, and I think it was a really strong entry by this author. I didn't feel like it hit a book number 2 slump. It was just really fun. I absolutely loved it. I am so excited to read the third book. I am so sad that the third, why am I struggling with this? My goodness. The third book is going to be the last because I'm just really having a great time in this world and with these characters. If you like more traditional like fae or fairies, you probably would love this book because they're very mischievous. Some of them are very dangerous and not in like, I don't know, a way that's like forced sexiness. I know I've said this several times, but like I'm over that portrayal of Faye. I just am. I know it's a very unpopular opinion because the publishers are selling millions of books at this point about sexy Faye. I don't care about sexy Fae. I want to read mischievous, traditional Fae. And that's what this series is giving me. So yes, it was excellent. I can't wait to read the third book in this trilogy. Oh, Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. Another 5-star read. This was so much fun. This again, I read this finally for my Reddit bingo fantasy reading, but you can see it's been on my list a while because I've got the paperback from when he was self-publishing, and I just really love these covers. I'm never gonna get tired of like the indie cover. I thought it was great. Oh, a little donut right there. But this is it's a lit RPG, which I've tried other lit RPGs in the past, and I mean, I don't know, they're fine. I was never particularly like compelled to go into that niche of fantasy. But man, Matt Dinniman, the way he's doing this is really, really working for me. So we follow our main character, Carl, who one day he's minding his own business and there's an alien invasion. They take over planet Earth and they basically build a massive like 18 level dungeon under the surface of the earth where if you choose to go into the dungeon, you basically have to go through to try to get out through level 18. So you have to descend through 18 levels. If you want to stay on the surface of the earth, like you can, but good luck because the aliens are gonna take all of the Earth's resources. So yeah, good luck with all that. Carl decides to go under the earth into the dungeon and try to descend through. He goes with Donut. Donut is the leader of his party because she is more powerful than he is. So the twist on this too is that it's not just going through a dungeon like an RPG. I mean, it is, but the dungeon crawling itself is televised for like the galaxy throughout, or the universe maybe. Basically, he's on a TV show, a reality TV show. It's like Survivor, but like real, but obviously not because this is a book, but you get what I'm saying. And so he's got to like fight creatures. I mean, it's a dungeon. There's rewards to get. So if you're familiar with RPGs, this is going to be pretty easy to understand as you're going through here, but he's also navigating at the same time. He's now a reality television show star because he's being televised. Like his struggle to survive in this dungeon is being broadcast to like billions of aliens. So this is so fun, and I don't know how many books are going to be in this series. I haven't heard the final, like, if there even is a number of books that he ultimately wants to write in this. I think there's like, what, 8 right now, maybe an 8th one is coming out. I don't know. This man is putting out a lot of books, and you know what, good for him because this was so fun. I am so excited to continue with this series, and I loved this so much that as soon as I finished it, I started the audiobook. Like the next day after I finished this, I started the audiobook, and I'm so glad that I did because I've been seeing this for years and years and years online. People are like, yes, this is good, but the audiobook is incredible. Like it takes it to another level. 100% agree. Even as someone who's like relatively new to audiobooks, I loved this audiobook. The voices, the sounds, just everything, they did an incredible job with the production of this audiobook. So I'm really excited. I'm planning to do the same thing with the subsequent books, you know, to read and then after that listen to the audiobook. This was so fun. I cannot wait to continue the series, and I strongly recommend everyone else pick this up too. In fact, you know what? I liked it so much that I was like, man, I think I missed the Kickstarter for Dungeon Crawler Carl, but I went online and I was able to get a late pledge. Like, I think it was off Matt Dinniman's, like his own website maybe. So I did order a Kickstarter of book number 1. So I'm gonna have a hardcover copy because I just really had so much fun reading that. It feels like a book that you can reread because it's obvious that even though you know, we're following this dude going through a dungeon, right? And what we're given at first is pretty straightforward, but you can tell that there's some deeper things going on here that we're getting like little sprinkles of, and it's obvious foreshadowing for learning more about what's actually going on. I think that there's going to be some deeper things going, like coming to light as the series goes on, which I'm excited about. So it'll be one of those where it's like, when you go back to reread, I think, you know, after I've gotten through more in the series, but if you go back to reread, probably gonna be fun to see those little sprinkling of foreshadowing along the way. So we have come to the final two. This one I'm going to talk about together too. I would say that they're in no particular order, but I realized they are. And while they are both 5-star, like blew me out of the water books, I did enjoy one more than the other, if it is even possible to do so. If I am going to allow myself to rate books on a scale higher than 5, I guess I would say one of them was higher than a 5. This, look, it is what it is. It just is, and it's gonna be cliche. I'm gonna warn you now, but I don't care. I read The Heroes, and then almost immediately I read Red Country. Both of these, of course, are by Joe Abercrombie. These are books 2 and 3 in the Great Leveler trilogy. This is like the standalone trilogy in the world of the First Law. And I know book number 1, Best Served Cold, I see people all over, they say that that's like their favorite Joe Abercrombie, that they feel like that's his strongest book. That's the one they enjoyed the most. And I did enjoy that book, but I just enjoy Joe Abercrombie, and I thought that book was great too. But man, I read The Heroes, okay? I read The Heroes, and I was so enthralled. This book takes place mostly over the course of about 3 days in a battle, like a battle that lasts about 3 days. The character focus in here is, once again, just so good. It draws you in. Neither side comes out seeming to be the good guys, which is the point, I think, of a lot of what Joe Abercrombie writes about in general. Is anyone, like, any one side actually the good guys? Is there any one side that's actually the bad guys? He does a lot of showing the story unfold from different perspectives. Some of the perspectives are recurring throughout the entire book. Some of them are one-off. Some of them we might get a perspective for like a paragraph or a page, and then that person's dead. Like, so we're seeing into a character's thoughts and what they're doing for maybe about 1 page, and then they die because this is a battle. And the way that he tells this story, which he does so well in, his stories are character driven. The plot unfolds and you care about it because of the characters. This was so excellent, especially showing characters on like both sides of this battle. And it was, even though I'm trying to formulate, because honestly it was so good, it almost leaves you speechless with how he tells this. When you're watching one side of the battle, right, and you're in the minds of some of the characters on that side, that's a side you're rooting for. And then you go to the other side and you see into the minds of that side of it and what's going on that side. You find yourself rooting for that side too. It's very difficult to pull this off as an author, or really anyone telling a story, I think in a show or a movie, any storyteller, to be able to get you to switch, like empathize with all of the characters, even though some of them are like the antagonist to each other. An incredible skill. And I think that that's what really shines through in this book. And it leads to, just highlights again, what does it mean to be a good person? What does it mean to be a bad person? And it really drives home the fact that right and wrong, good and evil, a lot of times comes down to a matter of perspective. So I read this and I was like, this is one of my favorite books of all time. Like, it's going to be so hard to read another book that the entire, every page, I just really, this worked and I loved it so much. And then you know what I did? I picked up Red Country. This is best book that I've read recently. One of the best books I've read of all time. I enjoyed the hell out of this. And this one I'm not going to go too into the reasons why, which seems kind of contradictory, right? Because I just spent several minutes talking about the book that I liked less than that. Now I'm like, oh, I'm not going to talk about as much about this one. I think a lot of my joy from this one came with the tension along the way of like what I suspected for a very long time and was sure I knew, but like needed the author to be able to reveal the story to me like in his own way. And so I don't want to spoil that for anyone who hasn't read it, but I really love this book. I understand why people describe it as a Western, but I didn't really feel that as I was reading it. But I mean, I think it meets the criteria for a Western. We're following our main characters. They live in a rural area, right in I guess this is the North where it takes place, but not like the traditional North, right? I'm real bad at geography in real life and in fantasy. I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, they're out in BFE, okay? Our main characters. They live like out in the middle of nowhere. And so they go into town one day to do like some trading, and they're gone for a few days to do that trading because it's a little bit of a journey to get there and come back. So when they come back, they find like their property is all messed up and their children have been taken and their friend who lived there has been killed, and they're like, what the hell? We gotta go and get these kids back, and we have to bring vengeance upon who has done this. This is not best served cold, although this does start out as a vengeance story. It's more about getting them kids back, okay? So what they then have to do is go further into the wilderness to like track the group of men who took these children. And so we watch them on this journey into the remotest remote parts of the world here, and the people that they meet along the way, the things they have to do along the way in order to get the support that they need to continue with their mission, or just, you know, look, they're in the middle of nowhere and not everybody is a good person, and so shit just keeps happening that they got to figure out a way to deal with. Again, it really sucks that I can't really elaborate on why I loved this so much, but again, it comes down to, I guess at the end of the day, the characterization that Joe Abercrombie does in his books really, really works for me. It's always done in a style that works so well. Just his writing style itself, I love, I connect with it, and he has a way of really bringing characters to life, making them relatable even when they're doing terrible things. You're like, you know, I get where you're coming from, okay? This is one of my favorite books of all time. I have to say, this too, they're both like, they are both now some of my, like, two of my favorite books of all time. I really enjoyed Best Served Cold, but it was not close to the level that I enjoyed these. And I will say, the First Law trilogy itself, like the First Law, the first three books, you know, Blade itself and all that, as a whole, I enjoy them. I view them as, you know, the same story, just like kind of like Lord of the Rings, right? Where it's like I view it as they're not separate. They're just three different parts within like three different acts within the same story. That's how I feel about the First Law. So taken as a whole, I feel like the First Law was a 5-star and probably will remain one of my favorite my favorite books of all time if I view it all together. But individually, I don't think any of those are close to what I felt about these individually. Normally when I finish an incredibly, like, Abercrombie's books, I mean, they do have dark humor in them, but like they're not lighthearted books. You know, there's a lot of violence and difficult things that are happening in these books to read through and to think about. You know, just like themes, right? And the characters, it's always a struggle. It's a gritty struggle, right? And so normally I need like a small break. Honestly, I probably take a longer than a small break when I'm gonna read something. What was it? It was this one. How big is this guy? Let's take a look. This is like a 500-page gritty book, right? The heroes, it's a battle, super bloody and gory and stuff. For me to finish this and then immediately want to pick up another book that I know is going to be exactly like this, because I know I'm going to just love it so much that it's not going to like weigh on me to go right into another book it's gonna feel that way. I don't know how this man came to write like this, but please, sir, don't ever stop writing books. I've pre-ordered The Devils from him. I think it's, what is it, next month that The Devils is coming out? I'm very excited. I'm planning to read Sharp Ends next, which is the short story collection in the Great Leveler kind of part of the First Law world. It's confusing to talk about. It's not that confusing to look at about like the order of books, but it feels kind of confusing to talk about. Whatever. Anyway, I'm gonna try to finish the First Law later this year, like get done with the Age of Madness by the end of 2025, and I think that's a realistic goal, but that's my plan. But I plan to read The Devils probably before I start, like after I finish Sharp Ends and before I start the Age of Madness, I will probably read The Devils, would be my guess. But yeah, I'm very excited to see a new series from Joe Abercrombie and to finish the First Law. So that's all my reading. That's all of my reading for, you know, my recent reads and stuff. I'm going to briefly touch on what am I reading right now. What am I? Oh, well, I'm reading Mysteries of Winterhouse. So that's a third book in the Winterhouse series. I'm also in the middle of a nonfiction about pirates called Black Flags, Blue Waters. It is, of course, about the like the golden age of piracy, because I have a weird obsession with that. So slowly working my way through that. I think I'm maybe like 20% of the way through it. Look, I'm going very slow through nonfiction this year, but I'm okay with that because last year I had 0 nonfiction. So the fact that I've already finished like a couple of nonfiction, and I'm fine. I'm fine with my progress on getting back into nonfiction. What I am going to be starting tomorrow will be the third book in the Emily Wilde series. That is going to be the Compendium of Lost Tales. So I will be reading that next. And then I just had to look through my list. And then what I'm also doing at the same time, and I'm going to have a video about it, I don't know, a couple weeks, is choosing my 2025 bingo reading, because that's going to direct some of my next books. So I'll talk more about that in the video that I make for it, but I'm going to try to focus on like series that I'm in the middle of to try to knock out multiple birds with the bingo stone. So and I can't believe that I've had so many books that I've read lately though, and especially so many books that I really loved. It's been great. I started a new job at work. I don't know if I mentioned it on my last update, but I started it before my last reading update. I don't know if I mentioned it though. Anyway, I started a new job at work. Like same company, just moved to a different role, and it's been so great. I have a lot more time back to myself now. And normally there's like an adjustment period, right? When you take a new role, you're like trying to get into the new role and everything. But man, I feel like there was no adjustment period this time. It was just like hit the ground running. Everything's been so good. Like stress level way down. Everything is just so much more manageable. So I am optimistic that I am going to have time within my personal life to do a lot of the things I want to like take care of, and to also have time to read. So yeah, I feel like at least in this regard, you know, with like a work-life balance and everything, this year looks like it's gonna be really good for that. So anyway, that is all that I have for my update. I didn't intend for this video to go on this long, but here we are. I just can't help myself. I talk and talk and talk way too much. So, but you know what? I'm like, it's my channel, so I guess if I want to talk a lot, I can. It's just, I go in and I'm like, I even started today and I was like, okay, this is gonna be a short video. So many of these books I already talked about in their own video. So like, I'm gonna do a short video. Not every video I make needs to be like an hour. I don't know. The recording time on here, you know what, I'm gonna say what the recording time is, and then you'll be able to gauge how much did I edit out. The recording time right now is at 49 minutes. So we'll see. We'll see how long this video actually ends up being, okay? Anyway, that is all that I've got for you today. Let me know if you have read any of these books, if you plan to read any of these books, if you have read any books recently that you've really loved, if you've read any books recently that you really like hated, you're like, this is the worst. Let me know. Let me know your thoughts. Anyway, thank you so much for coming by. I always appreciate it. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.